Hey everybody, let's continue reading the Sword of Allah. So, the false prophet guy, the drunk donkey wallah man, is dead. And now we're continuing. Feroz was appointed governor of Sana, so that's where we are, okay? They had taken all their problems to him and had settled, decided, directed, comforted. In the warm light of his presence they had felt safe from trouble and misfortune. Now that light had gone out. The Muslims felt alone and frightened, in the words of the chroniclers, like sheep on a cold, rainy night. Ooh, that's very cold, right? It's very damp, very wet, very muddy. The crisis deepened as reports of the revolt spreading over Arabia began to arrive. All the tribes of Arabia, with the exception of those in Mecca and Medina and the Saqif and Taif, that's right, revolted against the political and religious authority of Medina and broke their oath of allegiance. Oh, okay, so you have these tribes, right? They pledged to become Muslims, but the only ones who ended up really keeping it, at least in this moment, for this moment, is the Saqif, those in Medina and those in Mecca. But others, they started to already rebel. False prophets arose in the land and claimed a share in Muhammad's prophethood. Sadly, I'm not surprised. Some people are just opportunists. These impostors, having seen the affection and reverence in which the Holy Prophet was held, and unmindful of the trials and suffering which he had experienced before his efforts bore fruit, decided that prophethood was a good thing and that they too should get the benefit of it. Yeah, right. Their motivations are not because, and even if their motivations were pure, they weren't selected, so they shouldn't claim to be the sent one. Especially if they actually believed, because they would have been alive in the lifetime to have heard it directly from him concerning him that he was the final. So, you get it? It doesn't make sense what they're doing. If they try to say, we're doing it because we are, you're doing it because you're a scammer. Apart from Aswad, there were two impostors, possibly three, and one impostress. Well, that's strange. There were others, chieftains and elders, who did not claim prophethood, but united with the false prophets in their perfidious designs to extinguish the flame of Islam and return to the tribal independence of the ignorance. Okay, so tribal, they want to bring those old customs back and then just basically revert back. I see. The flames of the apostasy raced like wildfires across all Arabia, threatening to engulf Mecca and Medina, the spiritual and political centers of the infant state of Islam. Now, this is interesting. That's the real testing, too. See if everyone can do their duty to uphold what they learned, right? I mean, this is something very interesting throughout history. Even when Alexander the Great died, the way people went crazy, right? I mean, Ptolemy got Egypt, right? Everybody, I want this. When anyone steps down, it's like a frenzy, right? When even political figures, they step down, there's a frenzy. So, of course, if someone is a huge religious figure, there's going to be a frenzy after he passes to take some of that energy that exists still in the air, that people just want to drink up and use to propel themselves, right? The chief cause of the apostasy was lack of true faith. Most of the tribes, converted in the 9th and 10th years of the Hijrah, had taken to Islam for political reasons. Ah, I see, yeah. They had found it expedient. That's why it talks about true believers a lot, right? You have to watch out for the hypocrites. You have to, make sure that their intentions are not just political strategies, but indeed based off of faith and devotion and actually believing. So that's why I think there's a difference when Muslims say believers. It's like you believe in Islam. You don't just say like a Muslim. Even though Muslim means believer, in order to call yourself a real Muslim, you have to be a believer. But if we're going to get on semantics of language and how certain people interpret the language, that's why you have to be specific and say believers. Someone can claim to be a Muslim, but you have to say that no, or you're a believer. Because here, clearly, some people called themselves Muslims just for political reasons. So to differentiate between those for just political and those who actually believe, you say believers instead of just Muslim, because most people hear Muslims and you can think of both. Someone who's doing it politically, and then someone who's doing it spiritually, and then obviously the people in the middle who kind of have both, who want a theocracy, right? So I get it. But it's crazy, man. The apostasy is already like, whoa. They saw Muhammad as powerful political boss rather than a prophet with a new message. Yeah. So they took on the like a Genghis Khan type of thing, right? Where they're thinking like we're a Caesar figure, right? Oh, this is a political boss, when this is a sort of more divine mission, a changing of the tides, right? Of spirituality. The true Muslims were the Muslims of Mecca and Medina, especially the latter, who had been in contact with the Holy Prophet for many years, and had drunk deep at the fountain of truth, which the Prophet had revealed. Okay, so they had essentially been able to digest and have access to and really witness the way in which it played out, is from my understanding, right? So I think he's getting at. The outlying tribes had not enjoyed this spiritual experience. In many cases, when a chief became a Muslim, the tribe followed his example out of tribe loyalty rather than religious conviction. Yeah, exactly. That's you can understand that, right? Like how that happens, but that's the job of your I think your moms, your believers, is to go out and clarify and talk and not be like knocking on doors like missionaries and pushing it on everyone, but just clarifying and speaking and tending to the garden of knowledge, as they say, right? So again, when they mention believers, they're clearly differentiating between those who show tribal loyalty to their chief for political purposes versus somebody who really is believing that there's one God and that you should worship him alone, right? With the death of the Prophet, the tribes felt free to renounce their allegiance, which, as they saw it, had been made to a person, and not to Medina or to Islam. See that? So, how do you keep some legislation in line after that? Is something that certain people should think about, right? Very interesting. Muhammad was dead, and now they could throw off the yoke of discipline which the new faith had imposed. So it's weird. They may not even think that there's consequences, because to them, they're not thinking about military consequences or spiritual consequences. So they really did just do it because of opportunism, right? Wow. In limiting the number of wives a man could marry, in collecting taxes for the benefit of the community, in enforcing prayers and fasting, the strong leaders who led the revolt preferred to be free to exploit the weak to their own advantage, unhampered by the restrictions which Islam placed upon them. So they didn't want a new form of regulation. They wanted to do what their forefathers did. They wanted to go back again, or just not really have that. Now, what I like is the way he threw it off as discipline, the yoke of discipline, because to be disciplined you need a bit of restraint, which is a yoke is literally what's attached to the ox when it pulls the cart, which pulls the fruit, which pulls the nutrients, the knowledge. The fears of the Muslims deepened when Abu Bakr became caliph, the first caliph in Islam. Yes, Abu Bakr, the first caliph in Islam. I have to remember that. I know it, but I want to write it again, because if somebody asks me, who was the first caliph of Islam after the Prophet? You have to know, right? First. So, bing bing. You have to be smart, fam. I have to take good notes. Abu Bakr had never been known for any great quality of leadership, let alone the ability to steer the ship of state through the storm that gathered on every side and threatened the very existence of Islam. What was needed at this crucial juncture was a strong, robust, and capable leader. And what was the image of Abu Bakr? A small, slender, pale man who had deep-set eyes under thin, delicate eyebrows. Aww, his deep-sunk eyes. That's like me almost. By now he had a pronounced stoop which heightened the impression of age and senility. in spite of the fact that he dyed his beard. A mild, gentle, and tender-hearted individual, he was easily moved to tears. Oh, okay. There's different kinds of leaders. There's the noble leader who rules in wisdom and his emotion can show his heart and is passionate and caring. And some want just different dynamic leaders. Some people want stone cold rocks. Others want more analytically. Others want purely spiritual. Some people want a military man who's like athletic and like kind of hoo-hoo. Others want just buck wild. Hey, Others want, a Genghis Khan just raw. There's different kinds of leaders, right? So you can't fault Abu Bakr, but you also can't fault people for desiring a different kind of leader, right? I mean, anybody can want whatever they want. As the Muslims gathered to take the oath of allegiance, Abu Bakr made the first speech of his caliphate, a speech that further emphasized his modesty and humility and gave no promise of strength. He said, "Praise be to Allah, I am now in authority over you, but I am not the best among you. If I act virtuously, help me. If I act wrongfully, correct me. Truth is honesty, falsehood is treachery." Falsehood is treachery. He I like the way Abu Bakr talks. "The weak among you is strong in my sight, until I give him what is due to him, if Allah wills it, and the strong among you is weak at my sight, until I take what is due from him, if Allah wills it." Oh, okay. I see. That would make maybe a soldier mad. Maybe like a very alpha male. Like, weak, what do you mean weak? Like, who knows? Because remember, there's tribes at this time, so maybe they was like, we don't want the word weak to be used. What do you think, man?